Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having us on the show. This is Skinny for Mushroomhead, and we are currently about to release album number nine. Uh, just short of 31 years, coming up on 31 years, and August 9th, the new album. Its title is called The Devil, and it should be available pretty much everywhere. We start touring to support it early August over in the UK and Europe. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And in the early fall, we'll be doing some touring in the States in October. So really looking forward to getting out and playing some of this new music.
Fantastic, Skinny. Thanks for joining us. 31 years, bro. Like, you don't look a day over 21.
Yeah, yeah, the mask helps keep us young.
It's actually going to be difficult. I've been getting used to Zoom interviews since COVID, where I can see people's faces and I can tell when I'm giving them the shits or if they're starting to get bored. But with you, you're going to be really hard to read.
Yeah, it comes with the territory. I think that's part of our longevity. We all got a hell of a we all have a hell of a poker face.
So as you say, bro, Mushroomhead will release your ninth studio album called The Devil on August the 9th. So how are you feeling about it at this stage of the cycle?
Oh man, really, really excited. Like, on album eight was A Wonderful Life, and we'd released it in June of 2020, and COVID came in and just had, its way with the world, and definitely had its way with all the entertainers. I definitely felt it firsthand how, you know, non-essential heavy metal drums were at the time. So we all had to kind of buckle down and dig down in our spirits and say, hey man, we want to do this. Of course we're going to keep doing this, and it's our livelihood. It's who we are. Create music, no matter if there's a world to create it for left or not. We're going to just do it until we die. So it feels really good to have an opportunity to release an album and then get out there and perform and support it on stage.
100%, mate. And can you tell us a bit about the album from a musical point of view and what you're actually going for with it?
On this one, again, album number nine, it was very much another, let's just let the music take us where take it where it may, let it lead. And the album is very diverse. There's a lot of doom and gloom. There's some super aggressive, heavy, heavy stuff. And, there's a lot of stuff in between, super creepy, dark, typical stuff that, ends up coming out of us, whether we intend it or not. Everything ends up with a creepy, heavy, dark vibe. It's just what ended up being the Mushroomhead sound. So yeah, there's plenty of that. And then, like we definitely stayed out of our comfort zone. I don't know really if there is one with Mushroomhead, but we try to stay out of our own comfort zones and play with tempos and play with different keys and play with non-traditional arrangements, and just let the music kind of guide us. And some songs were a little more straightforward and put together specifically for like this is a heavy metal song, and then some of it's just straight art, and then it turns into dark art, which we love.
I love the way you start the album too with the track Eye to Eye. Like it opens with an almost funky sort of guitar riff and then just kicks in with the gut-wrenching scream, and it's typical Mushroomhead. But was that meant to be a little bit misleading, or are you just having a bit of fun with it?
Yeah, that's definitely a little bit of fun. So that's my older brother Gravy. That song was one of the first ones that actually that song was the first time he and I got in the studio and we recorded anything. That was the first the vibe of that song was the first session,
Yeah,
and
wow.
we hadn't recorded together in over 10 years, and we didn't have any material or nothing. We just got together and we talked and laughed more than we recorded. But when we went back and listened, we were like, man, check that out. Because we didn't, there was no click track, and we just sat down and just started jamming. So
Hmm.
we recorded it and listened to sections of it and said, man, that right there could make a badass song. And Gravy, man, he's got a hell of a lot of guitar playing background, and he's just a fun guy. He likes, picking and playing all kinds of different stuff like banjo style shit. And, he really, really enjoys playing any stringed instrument, really. But he was just kind of having fun. And I was like, man, that's just got a good vibe to it. And if we came into something just blazing heavy, I was like, do that again, and it just kind of started. So yeah, we were just having fun, man.
Well, it's a great guitar riff. Like I just put it on and I was just like, just getting in the funk, and then it's just come in and smashed me in the face. It's like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, that one definitely it rose above as we worked on a little bit. And we are like, man, doesn't matter what else is on the record. This one just has to be first. It just sets the tone to it, you know. We're just that's kind of the attitude we had. Like I said, we were this album comes across a little heavier, probably a little more aggressive, just because of post COVID, or it started writing during COVID. You know, the world was still very uncertain. It wasn't turned back on yet. And we were like, well, let's just keep, doing what we do, make music, and hope the world turns back on. So this album definitely has more of a sinister, more of an aggressive tone, just because, we weren't so hopeful anymore. We were like, everything's fucked. Let's record.
You've released a single to date anyway. You've released a single, "Fall in Line." I was going to ask you if it was a good sonic representation of the album, but then I thought it can't be because there's so much going on there that it must be difficult for you to actually choose songs to represent the album because nothing definitively does it?
No, no, it really doesn't. If you were to pick another song and anyone, heard that, they'd think, oh, well, that they sound like it's more like a Faith No More or a Pink Floyd almost. Like, it is so diverse that it's hard to put a label on even Mushroomhead in and of itself. But once the label had heard the whole album and thinking, a little bit more straightforward heavy metal that doesn't, necessarily offend or creep anyone out, so to speak.
Good luck with that.
Um, but yeah, but maybe a little more accessible. That song was, as far as like I said, it's just a straightforward heavy metal tune, catchy, um, nothing over the top, like, and it wasn't supposed to be. It just had a lot of energy, and to be honest with you, it was the last song that we wrote for the album.
Okay.
So it was kind of like, it came out of kind of nowhere and it was still kind of fresh. So when the label said they liked it, we were like, all right, cool, let's go with that one then. We've been doing this a long time, so we're not picky. Anyone, if the label wants to support something, then we're going to absolutely, let's take their lead. And Napalm's been absolutely great to us. I've been doing this a long time, and they've really got their finger on the pulse of, not just modern metal. They get what's happening, and they understand the whole, just how an artist feels. They care about product, and they make cool vinyl, and they really are they're a good camp to be with. So I'm real honored to be working with them.
Hell yeah. I'm going to veer off track a little bit here, mate, because and this is going to be a really difficult one for you to answer, sorry, but just say someone stumbled across this interview and they've never heard of Mushroomhead before, like using your whole catalog, give me 5 songs that they should listen to get the vibe of the band.
Well, boy, that's kind of tough. I don't even know if I know the real names of the songs because we all have
Uh,
working titles. But no, I could definitely play some ball here to some degree. I think a lot of people need like a kind of lead in. They never really heard it or seen it, and it's kind of heavy metal, or Mortal Kombat meets heavy metal blue man group, if you will. We tell that to a lot of people just so they get a basic understanding. But if you went through the albums, I think there's some songs off of 13 that are really, really heavy and just kind of poignant, as far as like songs that, Shroom was kind of shining in those moments. Uh, there's a few off of that album. One is called Destroy the World Around Me. It's a little more doomy and epic, but it definitely captured the vibe and just the feeling. Very creative in certain spots too. Uh, Go back to what is it, Buick? So and Double X, probably a lot of people know that one better, but Womp is a definitely a favorite. Fun to play. It's really, really high energy. Still captures that vibe when we do it. Um, Off the last album, The Heresy, just really epic and doomy, and it got that haunting vocal from Miss Jackie, which always shines. This new album, there's some man contenders on it. We're gonna drop another single here. It's called what is the real title of that? Oh, Prepackaged, and that one is it's pretty heavy and dark. So what was that, 4? We need one more.
Yeah, give us one more.
You need one more. Okay, you said five. So we can go all the way back to 1993, the first album. The song would be Slow Thing. First song, first album. It just captured the vibe of the creativity of the time. And, it was powerful back then to use just samples, to use just a straight piano and heavy guitars, no vocals, and to wear costumes and masks and open up with that song every night. And it still is one of my favorite songs to play. So there's five. I think you asked for five, right?
I did. I'd probably throw Sun Doesn't Rise in there as well, bro, because like every time that song comes on, I get fucking chills.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy on that, man. 13's full of them. Sun doesn't
Yeah.
rise, nowhere to go, nowhere to go. That's a really, really deep one. I really always enjoyed that song. And I mean, that 13's a monster record. There's some other really, really cool stuff too. But yeah, those are some contenders in my book.
Sweet. So, Call the Devil also sees longtime guitarist Dave Felton return to the fold, mate. So, how did it feel having him back, and how did it impact the overall sound on this album?
He contributed to just two on this album, just because of time and scheduling and logistics and just how things ended up being. But it was more about just kicking it and hanging out with him again. It had been 10 years. And like I said, that first track, Eye to Eye, was that track was a result of the very first recording session that he and I did together in over 10 years. So, man, it definitely led to the vibe of the entire album being just kind of fun again and just like anything's possible. So, yeah, man, it was just really, really good to, share the stage and the recording studio again with him.
Hmm. And once again, you utilized the dual male-female vocal attack with Jackie Laponza and Scott Beck on there. So, how difficult is it to get the dynamics right? Like with metal, you don't often get the male-female dynamics, but so how often is it? Oh, sorry, how hard is it to get that right? It wouldn't be easy.
And, well, there is a lot of experimenting for sure, just to see where they contrast or complement each other in the best way. Sometimes they're kind of in the same range, so one needs to take the lead and one should sit back. And sometimes that's just a little bit of experimenting and seeing who actually just sounds better. Who do we like? Who's more pleasant to the ear? And not that any of them are wrong, but that's why you hear like kind of complex blends of vocals going on sometimes with us, where there's harmonies tucked underneath, but they're not in the lead whatsoever. It's just because some of those parts and some of the texture, once we removed it, after experimenting and playing with it, once we removed it, it just became very plain. So we just kind of tucked some of that stuff back in there, and it's just a result of the sound because of the experimenting and trying to layer so much. But yeah, it is difficult sometimes because everyone's really fucking good. And how do you say, oh yeah, this part's not so good, you're not so good, this one's better, you're better for this, you're better for that. Everyone's really great. So I think a lot of times they even know the vibe of the part that, oh man, that's totally a Scotty part, or oh, that's totally a Jackie part. So everyone's really comfortable with working with each other, and that was, I think, lent itself to a lot more opportunity for this album to kind of shine, because there's a lot of lead vocal moments all over this album, man. All three of the vocalists literally, I think, did an amazing job this time. Absolutely.
It's sort of you probably wouldn't get this because you produce the album and you live with it every day. But from my point of view, like as a listener, the one thing that struck me was like you listen along and you sort of in your head you're trying to guess what vocal's coming next. And when I was listening through your album, I had no idea. Like I'd be listening to one part, I'd be thinking, yeah, male voice has got to come in here and do this, and then Jackie'd come in and it'd be beautiful. And that effect works really well. Like it's not what you'd expect, I guess I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and sometimes that's it. We find that like a formula just does not work for us. So we have to let the music kind of tell us where it needs to go. And again, that's part of I think the beauty of producing your own music and having, other artists that are open to experimenting and really seeing it through instead of, hey, I just have my one idea and that's what I want.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's perfect and we get that, but Mushroomhead really likes to experiment.
Mhm. Recently, bro, like you personally took on keyboards, samples, and water drums live, and on this you shared the studio drums and percussion with Aiden and Robbie. So I know from experience how hard it is working with one drummer. How the fuck did you make it work with three?
You know, it's fun because like certain sections, it's like, all right, well, let's, here's the basic beat and here's the groove and here's the riff, but maybe your take on it could inspire a different drum pattern or a different guitar pattern, because of the way they did their kick, accents or whatever. So sometimes you'll end up with something completely different that was based off of the drum beat from another guy. So it
Like,
doesn't always just, work just for drums. Yeah. And sometimes, you can just mute it all out and take that beat and turn it into almost electronic beat that's going on underneath and turns into a layer. So it's not just, all right, you play this part, you play this part, or you play this song, and, I'll play this song. A lot of it was, hey, kind of hit a wall here. I keep playing the same beat on this one. What do you hear? Here, take the sticks, go at it. So again, it was very, very fun this time, and it was one of the faster drum albums. Usually drums take forever, but between the three of us kind of passing it back and forth and just, all of us listening, going, oh, that's a more fun, it's easier to play, it's more fun, it bounces, yeah, let's do that, or sometimes it's like, oh, that beat just doesn't work. So it was really fun to have three guys just go at it and have their approach. And some songs actually have all three of us on it. It's a conglomeration of it.
wow, very cool. Very cool. Now, we sort of touched on this before, mate, but your previous album, A Wonderful Life, was universally lauded by people. People loved it. So, was it tempting in a way to rehash that winning formula on this next album, or was it important for you to sort of step away and continue growing?
It's funny because there are some songs that are on this album that feel like they just stepped right off the last page of A Wonderful Life,
Mm.
without a doubt. It'd be just because it's, the current lineups, influences or whatever. Not much has changed in 4 years in certain aspects, but I don't know. And then, on the flip side, quite a bit changed. Like I said, this album's a little more aggressive. It's a little darker, and some of it's very, again, very experimental. There's a song, I think, Hallucination, and we just ended up calling it was labeled dark art for a while, one of the working titles, just because it's very artsy and you just kind of don't know where it's very non-traditional as far as a structure. Um, yeah, again, it's not always easy.
Mushroomhead formed back in 1993, mate. So, what was the musical climate like that gave birth to the band, and where did you fit in initially?
We didn't fit in. I think maybe now we're starting to fit in finally after 30 years. It's like, hey, wait, maybe I'm onto something. I don't know. It seems like this
A
mass
visionary
heavy
man.
metal.
You're
Yeah, it
visionary.
seems like this, yeah, right. This mass heavy metal thing might catch on one day. We'll see. Who knew, right? I mean, God bless Slipknot, man. One of the biggest heavy metal bands in the world, Holy shit. So, that shows me, I wasn't that far off back in 93 that, you know, this type of entertainment, not only, could be popular, but here it is proof, I mean, it's beyond popular. It's part of subculture at this point. Horror movies, comics, cosplay, all that stuff. That stuff wasn't around in 93. So for us to start a theatrical kind of heavy metal thing, we didn't really fit in many places uh, at all with metal bands, rock bands. The places that we kind of fit were more festival style. Like we would actually get to play like raves. So that kind of opened our eyes to shit. We're gonna just have to do our own thing.
Um,
So we did. We hit the street and just started playing as much as we could.
yeah, cool. Now, I can edit this question out too, bro, if you don't want to answer it, because I didn't have it in here initially. But when you mentioned Slipknot, like, do you think, because I know a lot of it was media generated, that supposed war between you guys back then, but do you think that that had a negative effect on you guys at all in terms of moving forward as a band?
I mean, how could it not in the reality of things, any negative, everybody said, oh, negative press is, still press. Yeah, it's still negative. I've been doing this a really long time, and people tend to remember your downfalls. They tend to pick on your downfalls. They tend to pick on like, it doesn't mean me, a politician, or another band member, another band. People tend to remember the shitty moments or just how it was, whether you had something to do with it or not. and that's unfortunate for people that really believe in what they do and they move on, or whatever. I just in in hindsight, I wish, a lot of that shit wouldn't have ever happened or had been said, but whatever. Here we are. Again, they're one of the biggest bands in the world. God bless them. I can only imagine how much shit they had to go through and have to go through just to create music and art, It, I'm really happy for them in so many fucking ways. Like I said, it's proof positive that, people like this kind of entertainment.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I got a lot of compassion for them. Like I said, I can only imagine how much shit they've had to deal with.
True. And those poor bastards too. Imagine how big they'd be if they didn't get caught up in all that bullshit.
Right, right.
So back on to you guys, like you sound it draws pretty much from every form of metal ever made, mate. But you also got elements of hip hop, punk. There's electronics. You got so much going on, bro. Like, how do you find the balance in the writing and recording process? It must be a fucking nightmare.
It again. Sometimes you just have to let the music take the lead and not get lost into what it could be, because sometimes if it takes it away from the original idea or that original, just it can be a vibe, or a bounce or a lyrical phrase or something. Once you start layering things in and making things, as we say, proper, or how it should be like organized or arranged, I think it starts to lose its actual genuineness.
Yep.
So that's why we leave it. And, maybe we're a little ADD as well. We one style just doesn't sit with us well. We want to try a little bit of all of it. In everything. So it's part of it. Part of it is capturing the uh just the vibe of how we feel, for whether it lasts for a month or a week. It's really important to try to get some of that stuff out and get it recorded, and then watch it grow. Or sometimes you're like, well, I was just in a shitty mood, and that song's really going to be that whole idea is way too slow and depressing. Move it on, move on. Don't even bring it back up.
And I can imagine there'd be quite a few songs where the band speak, like half of it likes the song, half doesn't, with all that extra stuff going on. So you do like a vote and majority rules on something like that, or as producer, do you get final say?
Well, yeah, I always end up final say. Somebody's got to, make the call.
Yeah.
But in the long run, the strong stuff just floats to the top, man. It just rises above everything else, and we don't really have to, talk about the turd in the punch bowl, so to speak. We're really just move move along, man. That's not a good idea. It's like, I know it was your inspiration for the day, but did it capture any of us the next day or yourself?
Mm.
We say it a lot, man. We go home Picasso and we come back the next day as the Dutch boy. So what kind of painting we do, right?
Very cool. So after 9 albums, mate, like would you say that Mushroomhead has found your sound, or are you still experimenting and growing?
I think that is part of finding our sound, or at least identifying what it is that we do, is that experimenting. We are constantly looking for new textures and tones to amplify how we actually feel, to bring our emotions to life, to capture some of that stuff. It's we're not a one size fits all band, and I'm actually proud to say it.
Mhm. Very cool. So I was doing the figures before, mate, and I actually can't remember the last time you guys came to Australia. So when are you going to rectify that?
As soon as possible. Last time we were there, I had one of the best times ever. It was the Soundwave 2014,
Yep.
and we got to do all of it. And our off days
I,
were
I
our
saw you
side
there.
shows. Yeah, our side shows were with Zombie and Corn, I believe. And it was a bit of a blur, but man, what a hell of a time! What a hell of a country! I would love to come back as soon as possible.
The album called The Devil comes out on August the 9th, mate. So what's next for Mushroomhead after that? What do you got planned?
Um, Actually, we start a European and UK tour, just a small run, a couple of weeks. But it actually we started, I think, on the 7th or the 8th. So we're on tour the day the album comes out. And when we come back, we're going to do a month, almost a month in the States for the month of October. So we got, a good 6, 7, 8 weeks of touring coming to support the album. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Can you just move your right arm for me, mate, so I know you're a real person? You haven't moved the whole interview. I just need to know if I'm talking to someone or if I'm talking to a robot.
It's animatronic.
All right, Skinny, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, mate. Call the Devil is out August 9th. I think it's probably the best thing you guys have done in a long time. It's fucking great. So can't wait for people to
Thank
wrap their
you.
heads around it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.